The conference hall buzzed with excitement as attendees mingled, their voices blending into a symphony of ambition and rivalry. Alex stood by the window, gazing out at the darkening sky, his heart racing with anticipation and dread. He was about to present his research on climate patterns, his chance to shine in a field where he often felt overshadowed by his colleague, Jamie. Jamie, with his effortless charm and magnetic presence, had always been a thorn in Alex's side. They had been rivals since their graduate days, competing for accolades and recognition. Yet beneath the surface of their rivalry lay a complicated web of admiration and jealousy. Jamie's easy confidence seemed to draw attention like a moth to a flame, while Alex often felt like he was struggling to keep up. "Hey, Alex," Mia called out, breaking his reverie. She approached him with a warm smile, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. "You're going to crush it today?" "Thanks, Mia," Alex replied, forcing a smile. "I just hope Jamie doesn't pull any tricks on me." Mia's expression shifted slightly. "You know him better than anyone. Just stay focused." As Alex prepared for his presentation, he overheard Jamie speaking with Dr. Lewis in hushed tones. The words flaw and presentation drifted over to him like ominous clouds. A knot formed in his stomach as he tried to shake off the feeling of impending doom. The storm outside mirrored his anxiety. Dark clouds swirled ominously as thunder rumbled in the distance. It was a fitting backdrop for what was about to unfold. When it was finally time for Alex to take the stage, he felt the weight of every eye in the room upon him. He could sense Jamie's piercing gaze from the front row, a mix of challenge and something deeper that made Alex's heart race. He began his presentation, detailing his findings with passion and precision. But just as he reached the climax of his speech, Jamie raised his hand. "Excuse me, Alex," he said smoothly, "but didn't you overlook the recent data on atmosphere pressure shifts? It seems like a significant flaw." Gasps echoed through the room as Alex's face flushed with embarrassment. He stumbled over his words, trying to regain control of the situation, while Jamie's smug smile only deepened his humiliation. After the presentation concluded, an awkward mix of applause and whispers, Alex stormed out into the hallway, anger boiling inside him. Moments later, Jamie caught up with him. "Alex, wait!" Jamie called out as they stepped into an empty conference room. "What do you want?" Alex snapped, fists clenched at his sides. "I didn't mean to undermine you," Jamie said earnestly. "I thought you want to know before it was too late." "Too late? You did this on purpose." Alex shot back, feeling betrayed. "I was scared," Jamie admitted, stepping closer. "Scared that you'd outshine me completely." Their eyes locked in a moment charged with unspoken feelings. Admiration mingled with rivalry. But before either could speak again, thunder cracked outside, shaking the very walls around them. The storm descended upon them like an angry beast as rain lashed against the windows. The conference was abruptly interrupted as attendees were warned to seek shelter due to severe weather conditions. "Great," Alex muttered sarcastically as they were ushered into a nearby cabin for safety. The atmosphere inside was tense. People exchanged anxious glances while others checked their phones for updates that in the cramped space filled with flickering lights and nervous energy. Alex found himself seated next to Jamie. The air was thick with unspoken words and unresolved tension. "Why do you always have to compete?" Jamie finally asked, breaking the silence that hung between them like a heavy fog. "It's not just me. You're always trying to one-up me," Alex retorted defensively. "Maybe I do it because I admire you," Jamie confessed suddenly, surprising them both. "You're brilliant, Alex. I've always looked up to you." Alex's heart raced at Jamie's admission. The vulnerability in his voice disarmed him. "You could have just said that instead of sabotaging me," he replied softly. "I didn't know how," Jamie admitted, looking down at his hands in shame. As they spoke, lightning illuminated the cabin briefly before plunging them back into darkness when the power flickered out completely. The conference room filled with eager faces as Alex took the stage, a mix of excitement and anxiety swirling within him. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation, and he could feel the weight of every gaze upon him, especially Jamie's. Sitting in the front row, Jamie exuded confidence, his trademark smile plastered across his face, But Alex sensed an underlying tension that made his heart race. Taking a deep breath, Alex began his presentation on climate patterns, meticulously detailing his research. He spoke with passion, pouring his heart into every word as he highlighted the significance of his findings. Yet, despite his best efforts, he couldn't shake the feeling that Jamie was watching him too closely. Waiting for an opportunity to strike, that as he progressed through his slides, Alex caught glimpses of nodding heads and impressed expressions among the audience. For a moment, he allowed himself to bask in the glow of their attention. But just as he reached the climax of his speech, where he intended to unveil his most groundbreaking data, he felt a familiar presence shift in the room. "Excuse me, Alex," Jamie interjected smoothly, raising his hand as if he were still a student in class. "But didn't you overlook the recent data on atmosphere pressure shifts? It seems like a significant flaw." A wave of gasps rippled through the audience. Alex's heart sank as embarrassment washed over him like a cold wave. He faltered mid-sentence, scrambling to regain control of the presentation while Jamie's smug expression deepened his humiliation. The murmurs grew louder as whispers of doubt circulated among the attendees. I appreciate your input," Alex stammered, trying to salvage what little dignity remained. "But I believe my data is—" "Alex," Jamie interrupted again, this time more forcefully. "You should really consider revising your conclusions based on this new information." The room erupted into a flurry of discussion as people began to question Alex's credibility. He felt like a ship caught in a stormy sea, tossed about by waves of doubt and ridicule. The once supportive atmosphere had turned hostile in an instant. After what felt like an eternity, the presentation concluded. An awkward mix of polite applause and whispered conversations that left Alex feeling exposed and vulnerable. He stormed out into the hallway, anger boiling inside him like lava ready to erupt. He could hear footsteps behind him. It was Jamie. "Alex, wait," Jamie called out as they stepped into an empty conference room. "What do you want?" Alex snapped, fists clenched at his sides. "I didn't mean to undermine you," Jamie said earnestly, stepping closer. "I thought you want to know before it was too late." "Too late? You did this on purpose." Alex shot back, feeling betrayed. "I was scared," Jamie admitted, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Scared that you'd outshine me completely." Their eyes locked in a moment charged with unspoken feelings. Admiration mingled with rivalry. But before either could speak again, thunder cracked outside again, shaking the very walls around them. The storm outside had escalated. Rain lashed against the windows like angry hands trying to break through. The conference was abruptly interrupted as attendees were warned to seek shelter due to severe weather conditions. "Great," Alex muttered sarcastically as they were ushered into a nearby cabin for safety. The atmosphere inside was tense. People exchanged anxious glances while others checked their phones for updates. In the cramped space filled with flickering lights and nervous energy, Alex found himself seated next to Jamie once more. The air was thick with unspoken words and unresolved tension that seemed to hang between them like a heavy fog. "Why do you always have to compete?" Jamie finally asked after several moments of silence. "It's not just me. You're always trying to one-up me," Alex retorted defensively. "Maybe I do it because I admire you," Jamie confessed suddenly, surprising them both. "You're brilliant, Alex. I've always looked up to you." Alex's heart raced at Jamie's admission. The vulnerability in his voice disarmed him completely. "You could have just said that instead of sabotaging me," he replied softly. "I didn't know how," Jamie admitted, looking down at his hands in shame. As they spoke, lightning illuminated the cabin briefly before plunging them back into darkness when the power flickered out completely. The storm outside raged with a ferocity that matched the turmoil inside the cabin. Rain lashed against the windows, and the wind howled like a wounded animal, creating an atmosphere thick with tension. Alex and Jamie sat in the dim light, their earlier confrontation hanging heavily in the air between them. The flickering of candles cast dancing shadows on the walls, making the small space feel even more intimate. Alex could feel his heart pounding in his chest, a mix of anger and confusion swirling within him. He had always viewed Jamie as his rival, someone to surpass at every turn. But now, Sitting so close, he was confronted with a different reality. A man who felt just as vulnerable and insecure as he did. Why did you do it? Alex finally asked, breaking the silence that had settled around them like a thick fog. Why undermine me in front of everyone? Jamie ran a hand through his hair, frustration etched on his face. I didn't mean to. I thought I was helping you. I thought you'd want to know before it became a bigger issue. A bigger issue? Alex scoffed, his voice rising. You made me look like a fool. I worked hard on that presentation. I know, Jamie replied, his tone softening. And I'm sorry. I've always felt like I had to compete with you because you're so talented. The admission hung in the air, and for a moment, Alex didn't know how to respond. He had always assumed Jamie's confidence was unshakable, that he thrived on their rivalry. Hearing him speak so openly about his insecurities was disarming. Maybe if you hadn't been so busy trying to one-up me, Alex said slowly, you would have seen that I never wanted this to be about competition. Jamie looked at him, eyes wide with surprise. You mean that? You really don't see this as a competition? No, Alex replied firmly. I've always wanted us to work together. We could accomplish so much more if we combined our strengths instead of tearing each other down. A crack of thunder echoed outside, as if punctuating Alex's words. Jamie's expression shifted, vulnerability giving way to something deeper, a flicker of hope mixed with fear. I didn't know you felt that way, Jamie said quietly. I thought you were just waiting for your chance to outshine me completely. Why would I do that? Alex asked, exasperated. You're brilliant in your own right. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. As they spoke, the storm outside intensified, rain pelting against the cabin roof like a relentless drumbeat. The air felt charged with emotion, and for the first time, they were no longer just rivals but two men confronting their fears and insecurities. I guess I've always admired you more than I let on, Jamie admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Admired me? Alex echoed incredulously. Yeah, Jamie said, looking down at his hands as if ashamed. I've always thought you were smarter and more capable than me. It made me feel small. The honesty in Jamie's words struck Alex like lightning, sudden and illuminating. He had never considered how his own achievements might have affected Jamie's self-perception. Jamie, Alex said softly, leaning forward slightly. You don't have to feel that way. We can support each other instead of competing. Just then, another loud crash shook the cabin. A tree falling nearby, perhaps, and they instinctively moved closer together for comfort amidst the chaos outside. I don't want this rivalry anymore, Jamie said earnestly, searching Alex's eyes for understanding. Neither do I, Alex replied, feeling a warmth spreading through him at the prospect of a new beginning between them. As they sat in the dim light of the cabin, two men navigating their complex emotions. The storm outside began to lose its ferocity, mirroring their own journey toward understanding and connection. The storm outside continued to rage, but inside the cabin, the atmosphere had shifted. The air felt charged with a different kind of energy, one that was both tense and hopeful. Alex and Jamie sat close together, their shoulders nearly touching, the flickering candlelight casting soft shadows across their faces. As the winds howled outside, they found themselves in an unexpected moment of intimacy. The vulnerability they had shared moments before lingered in the air, and Alex could feel his heart racing not just from the storm, but from the proximity of Jamie. He had always viewed Jamie as a rival, someone to be bested at every turn, but now he was beginning to see him as a complex individual with his own fears and dreams. Do you think it's going to get worse? Jamie asked, glancing at the window where rain lashed violently against the glass. His voice was steady, but Alex could hear a hint of anxiety beneath it. I hope not, Alex replied, trying to sound reassuring. But we should be prepared for anything. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the storm's fury outside. The sounds of thunder echoed like a distant drum roll, and Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of camaraderie forming between them, a bond forged in the face of adversity. Do you remember our first competition? Jamie asked suddenly, breaking the silence. His eyes sparkled with a mix of nostalgia and mischief. Alex chuckled despite himself. How could I forget? You were so confident you'd win that you practically strutted around campus. I did not strut, Jamie protested, laughing. I merely walked with purpose. Right? Alex teased back, purposefully arrogant. Jamie rolled his eyes, but couldn't suppress a smile. Okay, maybe I was a little overconfident, but I really thought I had it in the bag. And then I came out of nowhere and surprised everyone, Alex said with a grin. Yeah, you did, Jamie admitted, his expression turning serious again. But it wasn't just that you won. It was how you did it. You were so passionate about your work. It made me realize how much I wanted that same passion. Alex felt a warmth spread through him at Jamie's words. It was strange how easily they could slip into this rhythm of banter and honesty, as if they had always been friends rather than rivals. I guess we both learned something from that experience, Alex said thoughtfully. Maybe we should have been working together all along instead of competing against each other. Jamie nodded slowly, his expression contemplative. I think we could accomplish so much more if we combined our strengths. As if on cue, another loud crash echoed outside, a tree falling nearby, and they instinctively leaned closer together for comfort amidst the chaos outside. The sound reverberated through the cabin walls, reminding them both of how vulnerable they truly were in this moment. Do you ever think about what comes next? Jamie asked quietly after a pause. What do you mean? Alex replied, curious. I mean, after this storm passes, Jamie clarified. What happens to us? To our careers? To our rivalry? Alex took a deep breath, considering Jamie's question carefully. I think we have an opportunity here, he said finally. We can redefine what our relationship looks like moving forward. Jamie looked at him intently, searching for sincerity in Alex's eyes. You really mean that? Absolutely, Alex affirmed. I don't want to compete anymore. I want us to support each other and grow together. A flicker of hope ignited in Jamie's gaze, and for a moment, they simply held each other's eyes. Two men standing on the precipice of something new and uncertain. Just then, the power flickered back on, illuminating the cabin with bright light once more. The storm outside began to wane as well. The wind had lessened its ferocity, and the rain fell more gently against the roof as they emerged from their intimate conversation into the light of day. Both literally and metaphorically, they felt a sense of renewal wash over them. The storm had tested them, but also brought them closer together in ways they hadn't anticipated. Let's make a pact, Jamie said suddenly, his voice filled with determination. No more rivalry, just collaboration. I'm in, Alex replied with a smile that felt genuine and free for the first time in ages. With that simple agreement hanging in the air between them, they both knew they were embarking on a new journey, one filled with possibilities rather than competition, a journey marked by understanding rather than rivalry. As the storm continued to subside, the cabin felt lighter, filled with a sense of possibility that had been absent just hours before. Alex and Jamie sat together on the small couch, the flickering candlelight casting warm shadows around them. The tension that had once defined their relationship was slowly giving way to something more profound, an understanding that had been long overdue. Can I ask you something? Jamie said after a moment of comfortable silence, his tone serious yet gentle. Of course, Alex replied, turning to face him. He could see the vulnerability in Jamie's eyes, and it made his heart race. What do you really think about me? Jamie asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I mean, beyond the rivalry and competition. Alex hesitated, searching for the right words. I think you're incredibly talented, he began carefully. You've always been passionate about your work, and that's something I admire. Jamie's expression softened, but there was still a hint of uncertainty in his gaze. But what about the way I treated you? The way I undermined you today? I think we've both made mistakes, Alex replied honestly. I've let my insecurities get the better of me too. I've been so focused on proving myself that I didn't realize how much I needed a partner instead of an adversary. Jamie nodded slowly, absorbing Alex's words. I guess I've always felt like I had to compete to prove my worth. But in doing so, I lost sight of what really matters: collaboration and support. There was a moment of silence as they both reflected on their past actions. The weight of their rivalry had been heavy, but now it felt like a burden they could finally set down. Do you remember when we first met? Jamie asked suddenly, a smile creeping onto his face. You were so nervous during that group project in grad school. Alex chuckled at the memory. I was terrified. I thought everyone else was so much smarter than me. And yet you ended up leading the project, Jamie said with a teasing grin. You were amazing. Only because you helped me, Alex admitted, feeling warmth spread through him at the recollection of their early days together. You pushed me to be better. Jamie's smile faded slightly as he looked down at his hands. I wish I had realized that sooner. Maybe we could have avoided all this tension between us. It's never too late, Alex said softly, reaching out to place a hand on Jamie's arm. A gesture of reassurance and connection. Jamie looked up at him then, his eyes searching for something deeper. What if we try to start over? Like a clean slate? I'd like that, Alex replied earnestly. But it won't be easy. We'll have to work at it. I'm willing to put in the effort, Jamie said firmly, determination shining in his eyes. That as they spoke, the storm outside continued to fade into a gentle drizzle, and the sun began to peek through the clouds, casting soft light into the cabin. It felt like a new beginning, a chance for both of them to redefine their relationship. Can I tell you something else? Jamie asked hesitantly. Sure, Alex encouraged him. I think I might be falling for you, Jamie confessed, his voice trembling slightly as he spoke, that Alex's heart skipped a beat at the admission. He had sensed something deeper between them during their conversations, but hearing it spoken aloud sent a rush of emotions crashing over him. I feel something too, Alex admitted, his voice steady despite the whirlwind inside him. I've tried to ignore it because I thought it would complicate things even more. Jamie's expression brightened at Alex's words. Relief washed over him, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. So what do we do now? We take it one step at a time, Alex suggested thoughtfully, feeling hopeful for the first time in ages. We can explore this together, see where it leads us without rushing into anything. Jamie nodded slowly, a smile spreading across his face as he processed Alex's words. I'd like that very much. With that simple agreement hanging in the air between them, they both knew they were embarking on a new journey, one filled with potential rather than rivalry. A journey marked by understanding rather than competition. As they sat together in that small cabin, surrounded by remnants of the storm outside, but filled with warmth and connection inside, they felt ready to embrace whatever came next, together. The storm had finally passed, leaving behind a world transformed. Sunlight streamed through the cabin windows, illuminating the space with a golden glow that felt almost magical. Alex and Jamie emerged from their intimate conversation, stepping outside to find the landscape glistening with fresh rain. Puddles reflected the bright blue sky, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of damp earth that as they walked side by side, Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of renewal wash over him. The chaos of the storm had brought them closer together, and now, in the aftermath, they stood at the precipice of something new, something hopeful. Do you think everyone else is okay? Jamie asked, glancing back toward the cabin. I hope they weren't too worried about us. I'm sure they figured we were just hiding from the storm, Alex replied with a chuckle. But we should check in with them soon. As they made their way back toward the conference center, Jamie turned to Alex, his expression serious once more. So, about what we talked about last night. Alex felt his heart race at Jamie's words. Yeah, I really meant it when I said, I think I'm falling for you, Jamie confessed, his voice steady but filled with vulnerability. I don't want to rush anything, but I want to explore this whatever this is between us. Alex smiled, warmth flooding through him at Jamie's honesty. I feel the same way. I've spent so long trying to prove myself that I didn't realize how much I wanted someone like you by my side. They paused for a moment, standing in the sun-drenched clearing as the world around them came alive again after the storm. Birds chirped cheerfully in the trees, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves overhead. Let's take it slow, Alex suggested, feeling a sense of calm wash over him. We can start by working together on our projects, collaborate instead of compete. I'd love that, Jamie replied with a bright smile. And maybe we can grab dinner sometime? Just us. Definitely, Alex said, his heart fluttering at the thought. I'd like that very much. As they walked back toward their colleagues, A sense of excitement bubbled within Alex. The rivalry that had once defined their relationship was fading into memory, replaced by something deeper and more meaningful. When they reached the conference center, they were greeted by concerned faces and relieved smiles from their peers. Mia rushed over to them, her eyes wide with worry. "I was starting to think you two had been swept away," she exclaimed, wrapping her arms around both of them in a tight hug. "We're fine," Jamie reassured her, glancing at Alex with a knowing smile. "Just had some bonding time during the storm." Mia raised an eyebrow, but didn't press further. She could see something different in their expressions, a shared understanding that hadn't been there before. Yes, they rejoined their colleagues and resumed discussions about their research and future projects. Alex felt lighter than he had in ages. He glanced at Jamie across the room. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and an unspoken connection passed between them. In that instant, Alex realized that this was just the beginning. They had weathered a storm together, both literally and metaphorically, and emerged stronger on the other side. The path ahead might be uncertain, but he felt ready to embrace it alongside Jamie. With renewed determination and hope for what lay ahead, Alex took a deep breath and smiled as he stepped into this new chapter of his life. One filled with collaboration instead of competition and love instead of rivalry.